Hi there everyone, this is FS Gojo Mentor guys, and on this specific lesson we're going to be covering the V and W strategy. So you're going to see guys, the V and W strategy is the most easiest, yet for it to be easy for you, it will require you to practice it every day. You're going to see guys, it's going to be easy because it comes from how you can easily identify the low or the high of the day. So without wasting any further time, let's jump in. So yeah guys, for now I'm going to cover the rules of the V and W pattern. So the V and W pattern has the V and W pattern and its inverse. So you're gonna see guys, in order for you to master this, it will need for you to practice this. I've been saying this so many times because that's how important it is. So now, as I've said before, this is something that you need to apply each and every day. We are starting with this strategy because it's the most important and it's the base of most strategy when you are dealing with Nasdaq. So the science behind this strategy is basically waiting for Nasdaq to pick or choose a direction for that day, then wait for it to come back to retest or respect the previous low. So let me put this in easier terms. So what we mean by this is, if let's say the market was playing like this and it decided to shoot up for this day, and the next day, right, let's just say this is the next day, and the next day it comes back to retest, we want to enter upon retest of the previous low for the day. Right, this was the low for the day specifically, basically. So we're waiting for a V. You see, let's say this was the previous day. For that day we had this low here, so it's coming back to retest the previous low of that day. So it's going to be easy to implement as long as you understand the psychology behind the strategy. So now let's see what happens when we continue. So it is always important to mark your previous low as you've seen or high and wait for the price to come and retest before shooting up. Let me put this in easier terms. Let's say for example you have identified this as your low for the day, right? The next day when it comes back, you know that when it approaches this low, you're gonna expect either a V or it will form like a small W. So we call it the V and W strategy. So we're gonna use either a V or a W. However, the psychology behind it is to enter upon the previous retest. Nasdaq likes to retest the previous lows or highs. So the inverse works the same. So this is the low, the inverse would be if it's a high, basically. Always wait for the candles to reject before taking the trade. As you all know guys, if I need to explain candles, we know that if we have a candlestick, for it to close, we need to see with this line, right? So if this is a candlestick that we have, it's gonna open. If it's a buy, it's gonna go up, right? And it's gonna close. So it needs to close and open a new one for you to enter. You need to enter if the candlestick is closed. That's when I know this is my high, it is closed, now I'm coming back for a rejection. Because if it's not just closed, it can still go up. As you can see, it's not the perfect time to enter. Basically, this tip is trying to find a perfect entry. You can never find a perfect entry, but you can work on your timing when you enter. So buy or sell on the retest because, as I've said before, Nasdaq always respects its previous low or previous high. So you're gonna see guys, the more you practice, the more easier it is gonna be for you guys to identify the previous low or the high of that day. Because the more you're gonna be able to identify those levels, that's where you're gonna find more entries. Now let's look at some few examples, right? The V and W application, right? If the price respects the previous low or high but not forming a V pattern or an inverse thereof, the setup is invalid. Only when it forms a V, that's when you set it off as a valid trade. As you can see, it shows us a previous low, as we knew the next day that this would have been a nice entry. As you can see guys, we can easily identify the low for that day and our V will be an entry. Now let's put that into practice a bit. As we know guys, we need it to be, let's say this is a low, and when it comes back it needs to be either a V or a W, right? So that's why we call it a V and W strategy. It's basically trying to find back our entries upon retest. You're gonna see the more you practice, the more it's gonna be easier for you guys to identify the low or the high of the day. So being able to find these entries, guys, is you telling me that you can now identify when the buyers are exhausted or when the sellers are exhausted. This comes from the skill of being able to read price action. And you're going to see the more we work on this, the easier it's going to be for you guys to identify these entries. So now, entry rules. Like I've said before, when you enter with this strategy, guys, you must enter upon retest. So if we find the previous high, it comes back, we enter upon retest. If we find the previous low, we enter upon retest. It must be a retest of that high or of that low that gives us an entry level. But you're gonna see, this is the base of many strategies. This is the best way to come about in terms of trying to trade Nasdaq. So in terms of finding your entries, you must always target the previous high or the low for take profit or stop loss. So if this was my entry, my take profit would have been here because I'm using the previous low, and my stop loss would have been here as I was using the previous high. So now let the stop loss be 5 points away from previous high or previous low, depending on where they want to go bullish and bearish. The reason we're saying this is if it's going to retest either this point or this point, you must at least give it enough time to breathe. As you all know, guys, the market can sometimes give us some stop loss hunt. So be sure you're going to place your stop loss where you try to a bit avoid the stop loss hunts. This strategy works about 4 out of 5 times. It will never work 100% of the time, or else Forex market won't be able to make money. So that's why being able to lose that 1/5 is basically being able to pay for your business cost. That's why you'll never find a strategy as 100%. All those small losses are there to shake up people. But as long as you know your rules that you're gonna follow all the time, it will never change. Like we say, guys, we like to explain trading like driving. Let's say, for example, we are dealing with an industry of risk, right? So in order for me to drive to come from this place to the next place, I have to follow all my rules. So I know when I find a stop sign, I stop. When I see indicator telling me left, I go left, so on and so forth. So if I follow all my rules and a car still comes and bumps on me, then it's not my fault. The market will also do that. It will come a time where you follow all the rules and something bad happens. It happens too. However, the psychology behind that is if it happens, know that is one of those times. So the market has to win a bit. You can never trade without losses, but as long as you can manage your wins to be more than your losses, you're gonna win overall. So listen, guys, the strategy is not that complicated. However, it requires practice. Let's say, for example, I want to teach you guys a small trick for playing soccer, where you want to play with the ball and you want to do a small around the world. That is easier in theory. It's going to be easier for you to say like you want to do it like that, but you have to practice until you can be able to nail it. The person who can nail this is a person who have mastered timing. The same concept for this strategy. You must master the timing of when to enter, when the high is hit and when the low is hit. And you're going to see after that, it's going to be easy for you to find your nice entries. Just like that.